Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing,
Derek, please.
you understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus
You
talking.
hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a license.
Per the state versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
All right, welcome. DJ Noob is here with you on the Metal Tavern Radio podcast, here with my special guest, Mugenlord. How are you, sir? Thank you for joining me today.
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I got a lot I want to ask you and talk to you about. Obviously, you're a big presence in the gaming world. I'm kind of the casual gamer. We kind of like talked a little bit beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
But before I do that, I want you to kind of, for the people that don't know who you are, the viewers that I have or whatever, kind of just give us a breakdown of who you are, like how you got your start and like what Mugen TV is all about.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So, hey guys, my name is Mugenlord. If you guys are wondering, Mugen, where did the name come from? Mugen is actually a software engine that allows you to create your own fighting games. This engine been around since Microsoft DOS, and I was back in like 5th or 6th grade when I first heard about it, but I wasn't fully introduced to it until I got into college. And one of my friends had pretty much bought over a copy on his thumb drive and said, hey, you really need to give Mugen a try. And then ever since that happened, I had pretty much created a channel that was dedicated to it. Because when I first appeared on YouTube, I had like a little comedy sketch channel called Brian Meets Reality. And that was during like, I would say 2006, maybe 2007 at the time. And it really wasn't going too well for me, the comic sketch, because that was the meta back then, the doing comedy sketches and stuff like that. But I noticed when I used to put every once in a while Mugen videos of different matchups. I used to have Mario versus Sonic or Homer Simpson versus Peter Griffin on my channel. And I noticed I was getting thousands of views compared to my comedy sketches. So at that time, I was like, okay, maybe I should make a separate channel for that. And ever since that happened, I have blown up really, really big. And then I decided to say, hey, what if I do like a TV show just center around Mugen itself, where I interview different character developers who create different Mugen projects and everything, and I give out reviews on certain projects that you can download, because this is a community thing. You can make your own projects. You can actually build characters from scratch too. You can make your own original projects and stuff. So I was like the go-to center for Mugen information and everything. And then once I pretty much went to college to work on my studies and stuff, I kind of like disappeared for a bit, took a hiatus from my channel. And by the time I came back, most of my subscriber base was gone. Like it was gone. So it was pretty much like, wow, I had to start all over again. And then at that point, Mugen wasn't really hitting for me. So I was like, I'm a gamer. I love playing video games. So I started going in the direction of just covering gaming news and topics and situations like that. And then that's when the whole Gamergate thing blew up in 2014. and a lot of this, the social politics and stuff that got involved in gaming had really started grinding my gears, and I started just having my opinions on some of the stuff that was going on in the gaming industry. But I really relegated that stuff to my streams, to my live streams. Once YouTube streaming became a thing, I started having like real talk discussions about the culture war on my streams, but I never made dedicated videos on my channel. I just kept my channel just dedicated to covering gaming news. But I noticed my streams, when I have these topics and stuff, I started noticing that my view count started going down and everything. And then people started telling me, say, Mugenlord, like, YouTube's unsubscribing to your channel. I'm not getting any of your notifications. And I'm like, is YouTube shadow banning me? What's going on here? So I try to lay back off of that because I'm like, I don't want my channel to not be seen by anybody. But as time started progressing, I started noticing like I'm getting subscribers, but my views, my people is not getting my content. So I was like, hell with it, man. The first video, culture war video that I did on my YouTube channel as a video to itself was how Western game developers have essentially just bastardized female characters and everything compared to how Japanese developers and Korean studios, make their female characters look beautiful and everything. And I made a video like that, and that was my first culture war video on the channel, and it blew up. Melanie Mack, Asmund Gold, and many other big people started just taking my video, and it was just circulating around Twitter all over the place. And now I went from, I would say, 12,000 subscribers, and now I'm at 22,000 subscribers and still climbing as we're speaking. Like, people just getting in touch with me and everything. And now I'm on podcasts now, like especially like this one and many other podcasts and stuff like that. So I really appreciate that. But besides that, I don't want to hold you up for too long and get into the show. But
you're good. You're good.
A 3D hentai animator. I also animate my own hentai and everything like that. I have a big following on Twitter. I have almost like 16,000 followers. I have a Patreon clip store where I sell my content and everything. I've been doing that since I graduated from college. It's pretty much responsible for everything that I have here. My game consoles and stuff is very lucrative and everything. And then I just started a comic book company 3 years ago called Venus Orion Comics. And what you see right here, these posters are essentially my comic book series that I'm working on. I launched my comic book sometime this fall and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, my artist right now, she's drawing up the pages to my book, and the book will be done and everything. The cover and everything will be done by May or maybe June-ish. And then I'll spend the whole summer getting ready to do get my presentation and the campaign itself going and everything. So I'm super excited to see where this goes, this big expansive universe. I've been really, really hoping to see if it blows into something big, man. Like, so I'm really looking forward to it because I got tired of things in the gaming industry, entertainment in general, to where it pushed me back to my hobby, which was story writing and everything. So I was like, why don't I just take my stories and then create something of it and see where it goes? So that's pretty much essentially, my origin story.
That's awesome, man. Like, I'm glad. I'm happy for your success there. Like, I'm very curious about your comic too. I'd really check it out. That'd be sweet.
Thanks.
Okay, so quick question. Hackers or Grandma's Boy?
Oh, it's about the movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, Grandma. I only saw Grandma's Boy once. And I was in I believe I was in high school. One of my friends had brought it over to my house, and he popped in and said, "You really need to go watch this." I was like, okay. And yeah, Grandma's Boy, yeah. I really, it's funny as hell.
Yeah, I was just saying, because like you mentioned how you kind of started young with the Mugen stuff, and I'm thinking, is he a prodigy? Oh, is this cool? Is he? That's pretty cool stuff there. So today, like, what is some of your favorite games to play, like, all time?
Of all time, man, that's a loaded question. There's so many games of all times that I really enjoy. I would say this: I have grown up as my first video game I've ever played at the age of 4 was A Legend of Zelda on the NES.
Okay.
And I have grown an attachment. I love Link. I love Zelda. I love the Zelda lore and everything. And I remember my parents telling me, especially my dad, because my dad is a big gamer. Like, my family's gamers in general and everything. And my dad said when I was in the womb, he was playing the NES Zelda game. And he said that the date I was born, and they brought me home, and he said he turned on the NES and the Zelda theme came on. He said your eyes just glue up because you recognize the sound, because I always used to play it while you was in your mother's womb. And ever since that, I had an attachment to it. And then one day, my dad gave me the controller, and he was surprised, and he was seeing me actually play Zelda at the age of 4 and actually going through the levels and everything. And I've been a gamer ever since. And then once the Sega Genesis came out, Sega Genesis was my first personal console that my dad and my mom had specifically bought for me. And Sonic the Hedgehog had just changed my life. It just changed my life. It just opened my mind to all kinds of games and stuff. But it wasn't until the SNES, it's JRPGs. It was Secret of Mana. And then after Secret of Mana, I was introduced to Chrono Trigger, played Chrono Trigger, enjoyed the hell out of that. And then I played a bit of Final Fantasy 3, which is actually Final Fantasy 6 in Japan. That's when I was introduced to Final Fantasy. And once that happened, RPGs made me realize that these are not just video games. These are actually stories, like enriched stories with deep characters and everything. And then once the PS1 came out, and I had got my dad had bought me this game called Suikoden, which was another JRPG that has over 101 characters you can recruit in the game, and is essentially about this small town or youth going against the empire. It's all about this youth getting together because it's based after this, I think, Chinese or Japanese story where these youths will get together and they will go against the government, because the government is oppressing the people. So they made a game based off of that mythology where you collect 101 characters. And in this game, you grow attached to these characters, and some characters, as you grow attached to them, some of them even die. Yeah. I was like, wow. And then the main character at some point where you was the son of a great general named McDowell. And once you find out that the empire that you're fighting for is really the bad guy, you join this liberation army, and then one day you have to fight against your own father because he's loyal to the empire. So once you fought your father, you had to kill your father, but your father say he's like, I'm proud of you. You was a man, you made your own decision, regardless of you being my son or not. You went your own path. And then you have this glove called the Soul Eater. So you took your father's soul, now you have his abilities. But that hit me as a kid. I was like, I have to fight my own father. Like I was supposed to follow his footsteps, but I end up going my own path. It really got me, man. So yeah, man, I guess those would be the games. And Final Fantasy Tactics, love that. And 7 really did it for me, Final Fantasy 7. But yeah, those would definitely be the games that really
my wife is a big fan of Final Fantasy 7. Actually, it's kind of funny because I bought a Sega Genesis for myself for the very first time. It was my first console, so I remember playing Mortal Kombat on there, and then also Madden. So I used to use that cheat sweep move all the time.
Yeah.
Back then it was a little bit simpler to kind of make plays and whatnot, but yeah. So I've been kind of following you a little bit on X and your YouTube channel and stuff. You've been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
I haven't checked out your video yet on that, but what is your thoughts currently on that right now?
Oh man,
It's a lot to deconstruct, right?
Yeah. Because today I just uploaded the video is like an hour and almost 30 minutes long. It's pretty much a spoiler rant of the story and just giving you my overall raw opinion. Unfiltered. It spoils everything and whatever. And all I have to say is that I'm a big Final Fantasy 7 fan. Anytime anything comes up Final Fantasy 7, my eyes are glued. I want to know what it is and everything. But what I feel about this whole trilogy is that this is like a reactionary project. And what I mean by that is, as I said in my video, is the fact is that after Final Fantasy 7 had concluded in the original, in the PS1, it had garnered a fan base, it had garnered a community and everything. And what happened was it got so popular, and what Final Fantasy 7 did for Square Enix too was made Final Fantasy become mainstream, and it made Square Enix a much mainstream company because Square Enix was very niche at the time with JRPGs. RPGs wasn't really that big. It was more so adventure games, your shooters, your fighting games. But when it came to RPGs, it's like a cult, like a little cult, like niche group that were into them. But Final Fantasy 7 had opened it up for everybody. So it was kind of like a lightning in the bottle. So they wanted to capitalize on Final Fantasy 7. So they said, how about we do this? How about we make a compilation? Let's expand the world. Let's do it like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's start coming up with different stories within the Final Fantasy VII universe. So when I heard this news, and now when they made this announcement, I was in college by this time. You know, I was in my freshman year of college back in like 06 or whatever like that. And they said, yo, we're doing a compilation. We're going to start coming out with a bunch of different games within the Final Fantasy VII universe. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a movie that's a sequel to Final Fantasy VII. And I was like, wow, really? It was called Final Fantasy VII Average Children. So I was just happy to see now my characters going to have all my favorite characters are now going to have voices. They're going to talk now, and they're going to be in new tech and this high tech, you know, technology now. You know, so I was super excited for it. So once I seen Average Children and everything, I was like, oh man, this is something that I really, really wanted to see. But to me, the movie didn't age well because as I started rewatching it over and over again, that's when the cracks started coming through. I started noticing that the characters weren't behaving like the original. There's a lot of retconning going on, and I didn't know the purpose or the reason behind the retconning at all until they released and announced Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. They decided to give Zack, one of Cloud's, the main protagonist, homeboys that he was in Shimra with, who pretty much shaped the character. They decided to give him his own spinoff and everything. So I was like, Zack really need a spinoff? I mean, Zack was just only there to push Cloud's character forward, to shape him for who he was. That's all he was needed for. So Zack, in my personal opinion, in the original game, he was much larger than life because you didn't know much about him. You just knew that he was a soldier. He ended up fighting against Sephiroth, and then he ended up getting killed protecting Cloud. And that was it. And then Cloud took his memories on and started mixing up his life with Zack's life. And that's all he was for. And that was a way for Sephiroth to manipulate Cloud to his advantage. But then they decided to give this guy his own game. So I was like, I'm not too crazy about it, but I'll give it a try because I like Final Fantasy. So I ended up playing the game, and I ended up not liking it because then they started expanding on Sephiroth. I didn't want to know much about Sephiroth because now they started giving him a backstory and everything. And that's why the I guess you say Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3, when they gave Anakin Skywalker his backstory, it kind of ruined Darth Vader because Anakin was just a whiny like bitch. But like, I didn't like how they did him and stuff. So it changed my perception of Darth Vader when I started going back rewatching the original. So it's kind of like that with Sephiroth because now we're starting to get all this backstory. It gets convoluted. Then we find out that there was 2 other experiments besides Sephiroth. Now we get introduced to this guy named Angel. Then we get introduced to this guy named Genesis. Now they have one wing, just like how Sephiroth had one wing. So now Sephiroth is not even special at all. So we started getting all this other type of stuff. They started retconning more elements. So to bring it back to the trilogy, what's going on with the remake, what they essentially done was it built the fan base to where fans they fell in love with Zack. I hated Crisis Core, but it created so many fans who love Zack. And as I said before, Zack died in the original. So when you're playing as Zack, you know he's going to die. So so it pretty much made a lot of people fall in love with the character, and they were hoping that, oh man, I wish Zack was alive, and I wish Aerith was alive, and those two reunite back together. So when I started playing the remake, and I started noticing that characters that were supposed to die was alive and didn't die, I'm like, please don't tell me. And then then we found out that Zack ended up living in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I said, please, this is fan fiction. I said this seemed like a reactionary project that now with Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, they're pretty much putting in all the things that fans always wanted. All the fan fiction, all the fanfare, all this is encompassed in this trilogy. And that's what I was afraid of. And as I'm playing it, I'm a Final Fantasy fan. I'm playing through it and I'm just scratching my head. I'm face palming. I'm like, why are they doing this? And the whole thing about it is the developer said that the whole goal is by the time this trilogy ends, it's supposed to fall in line to Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the movie. So I was like, okay, if it's going to fall in line with this or whatever like that, which means that everybody is still going to die anyway. Everything is going to fall in place anyway. So if everything's gonna fall in place anyway, then why go through all this? Why make all the changes? You should just give us a remake of the original game that told the original story, but added some things to flesh out the plot holes. And
Right.
I would have been fine with that. But they introduced the multiverse. I'm like, now you got multiverses in here, alternate
How does
realities of the same.
how does Final Fantasy: The Spirit Within fall in? Where is that? Because like
That's a good one. That's a good question. I like that. Well, the spirits within has no relation to anything. It was
I didn't
just
think so. Yeah.
yeah, it has no relation to anything. And in fact, that's what bankrupt the company. That's what actually caused the company to go bankrupt, was because at the time was Square. Because remember, they was named Squaresoft at the time before they became Square Enix. Because
Yeah.
Enix was their competitor. Enix made their own JRPGs at the time, and Squaresoft made their RPGs. And when I heard the news that these two was going to merge together, I was like, "Oh my god, this sounds OP as hell." Both my favorite RPG companies coming together to be one. But what happened was with Square started becoming more popular than Enix, was because of the
Mm.
Final Fantasy series. So what happened was, since Final Fantasy became their bread and butter, because Squaresoft was about to go bankrupt years ago, it was called Final Fantasy because it was supposed to be their final game. But it just so happened that that final game was the game that saved their lives. So ever since then, it was just Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy. So what happened with Spirits Within, after the success of Final Fantasy VII, these guys got ahead of themselves. They end up greenlighting Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy X and 11 at one time. And then on top of that, a Final Fantasy movie, which was Final Fantasy Spirits Within. Now, the thing about Final Fantasy VII Spirits Within, in Japan, it was actually a 3-part OVA on television, but they decided to make it a movie here in the States. And this was supposed to be
Okay.
a way to introduce people to Final Fantasy. So when I first saw the trailer to Final Fantasy Spirits Within, I was excited because I played Final Fantasy VII. I'm an owner of Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy IX wasn't out yet. And matter of fact, it wasn't even announced. So we didn't even know that was in the works. But Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy Spirits Within was something I was excited for. So when I went to the movie theaters, when my parents took me to the movie theaters with my brothers and my sister, we go to the movies and we sitting down. My dad's a Final Fantasy fan too. And as we were watching it, I said, "Where's the fight?" I said, "Where's the fantasy? Where's the Final Fantasy?" It felt nothing like a Final Fantasy. We didn't get no chocobos. We didn't get no Moogles. We didn't even get no summons. It was
That's the thing,
nothing.
man. The one thing about Final Fantasy is I love the Guardian Forces. I fucking love them.
Mm-hmm.
Shiva, Ifrit, all of them.
Yeah,
Like,
we didn't get none of that. This felt more like a CG sci-fi just story. It just seemed like a generic sci-fi story. That's all it was. There was no elements. The only thing you can probably get out of like Final Fantasy out of it was the planet was named Gaia. Because
mhm.
there's a couple planets in Final Fantasy that goes by that name Gaia, and then one of
Right.
the characters is named Sid. That was it. That was it. Everything else wasn't Final Fantasy, and it bombed, and it hurt Square so bad, and it made Enix started having second thoughts about doing the merger because it had hurt them so bad
Oh wow.
financially. Yeah, it made them have second thoughts. So then that's what made them start pushing, like, okay, we have to get Final Fantasy 9 out there. We got to start pushing Final Fantasy 10. We had to start pushing out all these projects to recoup that money back to convince Enix to merge with us. And that's what ended up happening. And eventually they ended up merging together. But in my personal opinion, I think the merger was a big mistake because we don't get we didn't get the best of both of anything,
Yeah.
like we didn't. And more than anything, most of Enix projects were pushed on the back burner because all we still end up getting was the only thing that Enix that we do get all the time, like most of the time, is Dragon Quest because Dragon Quest is owned by Enix. So that's the only thing we more so get: Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. But most of the Enix projects was pushed aside. Like we had one of the Star Ocean was made by Enix. We just starting to see a resurgence of Star Ocean, but Star Ocean disappeared for quite some time. Once these mergers started happening, and then we also had the I forgot, it was a Norse mythology game. I can't remember. She's a Valkyrie. Valkyrie Profile. Valkyrie Profile disappeared after a while. A lot of their projects started disappearing, and Square was the ones that was pushing their projects to the front. So there's a lot of sacrificing going on, and if I was to rewind time, I would wish for them to never have merged. So we start getting more projects from Enix and their titles, and Square would still have their projects and stuff. So, but as
That's
far
a
as that's
good
concerned,
that's a good way of putting it because there was a
mhm.
question that was posed on X earlier today, and I thought it was pretty good. Is if you had the finances and the power, if you could reboot or remake 4 games with unlimited funds, what would they be?
Oh, Jeez, bro, this is
For
some
me,
good stuff.
I came up with Dynasty Wars, which has always been a favorite of mine. Mortal Kombat, Tokyo Extreme Racer, and then Final Fantasy VIII, which is my favorite of the Final Fantasy series, which
Hmm.
makes my wife mad because she's a big Seven fan. But
Oh man, bro, this is a good one. All right, one of them, one project, one game, especially from Square, that I would love to see remade because I believe that there's potential there. Is this game called The Bouncer? It was on the PS2, and it was pretty much a story about these three bouncers who really get into some shit. Like this one girl named Dominique, and Tetsuya Nomura was the creator, or I would say like the artist behind this game, is because his handwriting is all over it. He's the creator of Kingdom Hearts, and the character's named Sion. And you see some resemblance with Sion and Sora from Kingdom Hearts because Sion was the first design. And when you see Sora, say, wait a minute, did they pull some things from Sion and give it to Sora? Because he has the jacket, he has everything. But it's this girl named Dominique, and come to find out that Dominique is this satellite weapon because the real Dominique had died a long time ago. So it's this
oh
guy
wow,
who owns this corporation called Doragon C. Mikado, who is the older brother of Dominique. So while you're at the bar, you're this bouncer and everything, all of a sudden these shinobis bust through the window, and now you have to fight these shinobis. They're all after Dominique. You don't know why they're after Dominique. So the whole game you're on this is a beat 'em up, by the way. It's not even it's a RPG hybrid beat 'em up like Streets of Rage. But there was so much potential there that I can see them remaking that and then have Platinum Games, because Platinum Games are good at creating action elements and set pieces when it comes to action RPG. I think Square Enix could take Bouncer, get Platinum Games to do the combat, and then flesh out the story and then add some multiplayer because it was a single player game, which they dropped the ball on that as well. That it's a beat 'em up game, but your partners are AI controlled, and then each chapter you can switch what character that you want to play as, while the other two is AI control. But also within this beat 'em up game, there's certain things in the story that changes depending on what decisions you make and what paths you walk
oh that's
down
cool.
on the level. Yeah. So it was
Kind of
pretty
like a
cool.
choose your own adventure type thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's this one part where you had to stop the water from flooding through this building. So you had to find all these levers to close the door. If you close the door, it would have opened another path that the heroes would have ran down, and then you would have got more like parts of the story. So it created this replay value, this replay loop. So you have to play the game at least maybe like 4 times to get the entire story and choose the different paths and everything, and to get the true ending. So it was a lot of potential there, and I believe, and they dropped the ball, and it got a low rating. It had got like a 4 out of 10 at the time, but the potential was there, and it was like one of the early PS2 games as well. I would
The
wish for
plot the
them to,
plot device sounds really good. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I would like for them to remake that. But as far as what else I would like for them to remake, that is, man, like I have so many games I would love to see, but at the same time, the way the current time is and where gaming is at, man, it's like they're just ruining my favorite games,
Well,
even
that's
when it
why I
comes down
say
to remaking
it's in
stuff.
your power. So this is
Yeah,
why we
yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah,
shit the
yeah.
bed.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. I would love for Nintendo to remake Ocarina of Time. I love like Mario 64 and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on Nintendo 64 have really shaped my childhood. I love the hell out of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and that was the time where when I played Legend of Zelda when I was a kid, Legend of Zelda didn't really put emphasis on its story. It was more so about the adventure. But it wasn't until Ocarina of Time on Nintendo 64 we started getting a little bit of story telling going on, and it really piqued my interest because now, like, Link feels more like he don't feel like an empty vessel. Now he's starting to have backstory now, and there's more to his character, and we also starting to get more to Zelda herself and everything. So I would love to see them remake that and then add more backstory to even more story, because they had story but still didn't have a lot of story or whatever, but it had more story than the games that came before it. So I would
Right.
love to see them flesh that out even more and see what they would do with it. So Ocarina of Time remake, I would love that. I wouldn't be surprised they do remake it for the next Nintendo console. Just cross my fingers on that. Let me see. Man, now like you asking me this question. Oh, Sonic Adventure 1. Because I if for people who don't know, Sega Dreamcast will be my favorite console of all time. I love the Sega Dreamcast. Like I said, I was a Sega kid. Even though I played the Nintendo first and everything, Sega has always been my favorite console and everything. But the Sega Dreamcast will be my favorite console of all time. And Sonic Adventure 1, man, that just blew my mind.
Is Dreamcast the one that was basically it just had like a limited amount of games you could play on because it didn't last long, right?
No, no. All right, this is a good question. Well, there was two consoles that was very limited. You had the Sega Saturn, which was the 32-bit. The Sega Saturn was competing with the PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo 64 at the time. Now, that was very limited, especially in the States. Now, Sega Saturn was pretty successful in Japan. They had a lot of games in Japan, but in the States, that console died on arrival. The moment they announced the console, and that's the thing about Sega, and I will say this about Sega. Sega was ahead of its time, and Sega had poor marketing. The people that was in corporate had no idea what the hell they were doing. And what the thing was with the Sega Saturn during E3, which is like one of the biggest gaming conventions that they have, where they present upcoming consoles, new games, and everything. And at
Yeah.
E3, they had announced the Sega Saturn. Now, the problem with this was normally when the console was announced, most of the time the developers are already working on games for that console. They already got the console kits to start making the games. So by the time the console comes out, you have a lineup of launch titles. Now, with the Sega Saturn, which was so stupid, and I was so young at this time, like really, I think I was in like maybe third, maybe fourth grade at the time when Sega Saturn was announced. And I remember in the gaming magazine, I was reading it, they had made an announcement that the Sega Saturn was coming out. Now, the problem with this was when they announced it, the day that they announced it was the day that it was going to be on shelves for you to purchase it. Now, the problem with that was this was new information to even game developers. They had no idea the Saturn was a thing. So that means
Oh no.
the Sega Saturn was being released with no games at all. And then Toys R Us and EB Toys and many other outlets wanted to sue Sega because they bought a bunch of Sega Saturns, but then they found out that there was no games. So they had a bunch.
Oh god.
So Toys R Us had a bunch of games, a bunch of consoles and stocks with no games. So they wanted to sue Sega for that. Say, yo, you guys kept that information from us. We wouldn't have stocked up on as many Sega Saturns if we would have known there was no games coming for it. So
Yeah.
that's what hurts the Sega Saturn. So by the time the games came out for Saturn, Sega Saturn was dead. It was dead before it even came off the ground. So Sega said, we have to do something right away. We need to make another console. Sega Dreamcast. The Sega Dreamcast was the next console, and it was 128 bits. It was going to be the most powerful console on the market to date at that time. No one heard of anything like this. 128 bits. I was like, I couldn't fathom. My little brain as a kid couldn't fathom it, and even my father as a gamer, he couldn't fathom 128 bits. Like, what would these games look like? And the fact is that Sonic was going to be one of the titles that was going to be released on this console. I couldn't wait to see how Sonic was going to look. So when the Sonic Adventure 1 came out for the Sega Dreamcast, when it launched, I remember on Christmas Day, when I went to open up my Dreamcast, I popped in Sonic Adventure 1. Soon I turned it on, I see these high fidelity graphics. I mean, these graphics blew my mind. Because remember, PlayStation 2 wasn't out yet. It was still the PS1, and you still had the Nintendo 64. So Dreamcast was double the power. So when it came on, I wasn't even sure, like, is this even a Sonic game? Because I see real people walking the streets, and it's kind of like a New York City type of like opening. You see people walking and say, okay, where's Sonic? I see all these people, human people. I said, is this the right game? It's like, this can't be Sonic. And then once the city gets flooded and then chaos come out from the building, because he's like this water creature, and he's flooding the city, and people is dying and everything. And then when the next thing you know, you see Sonic running. I said, oh, there he is. And now I see him in this high fidelity graphics, and it had voice acting. Everybody's talking in this game. And then you have Crush 40, which is this metal band who does most of the soundtrack for Sonic, for the 3D Sonic games. So now all of a sudden I'm introduced to this metal band that's playing this theme song called Open Your Heart, and I'm losing my mind. I was in 7th grade when this came out. Yeah, so I'm losing my mind. I said, yo, I can't believe this. So that really changed my perception of where gaming could go. And then on top of that, with the Sega Dreamcast, it was like the console had a built-in modem and it ran on Windows. Was it CE? Yeah, it ran on Windows CE. It had a built-in modem, which means you was able to browse the internet and it had online gaming. Sega was always before its time, but the execution, it just sucked. But what ruined it, and this is the stupid thing, this what ruined the Dreamcast, it didn't have a DVD player because Sony announced the PS2, and when Sony announced the PS2, it said, that's right, you can watch The Matrix, because The Matrix came out at the time, and that was a big thing. You can watch The Matrix and all your favorite movies on your PlayStation 2, because you gotta remember at that time, you have to be pretty much almost rich to have a DVD player. DVD players were super expensive back in the day. And the PS2 was a cheap DVD, player, because the PS2 was what, 200, like $300, maybe $400 during that time. So you had a cheap DVD player. So now what they were doing was they were putting PS2s inside movie stores and stuff. You had Circuit City. They started putting them in FYE. They started putting them in all these outlets that you would never see a game console to appear. So that's what happened, and that's what killed the Dreamcast, because people was like, I'm not gonna get a Dreamcast, I'm gonna get a PS2. Not only can I play games, I can get DVDs and watch my favorite movies on this platform. And that's what really killed them, man. And it was just sad to see them go. But yeah, a Sonic Adventure remake would definitely be awesome. And I really can't think of any other remakes, because I don't know. I'm more of a proponent just moving forward to see the new things, but those would probably
Keep
be
the
the
nostalgia back.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I was at work yesterday, my day job, and so like your video for your return to YouTube. So I spent like a good couple hours listening to that, which was a lot of fun. But I do want to touch on some of the points you talked about, because a lot of it, man, you really touched on a lot of stuff that I feel about what's going on right now. And one of the first thing I thought was interesting, though, is you mentioned about unknown 9. The character you said, that is Anya Charlatra from Witcher. So that's interesting, because it's funny how I probably break this down. So you saw the Witcher series, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I saw the first season. Yeah.
So her character in that starts out as kind of like this disformed woman who uses spells and magic to kind of like beautify herself or whatever. But then in this game, like they used her image, but then made her disfigured. Basically, they made her look horrible.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is for a company, and because both of them are kind of woke. So the series said, okay, well, we try to make the beauty standards more normalized, but they didn't do that with Witcher. They made her very beautiful, which she is a very beautiful woman. But then in the game, we're going to go back and make her mugly. So like, what was the fucking point of this? And so I was like, with you, I couldn't understand like why they're doing this. It makes no sense.
Doesn't.
And you started talking about later on about how it was kind of funny. I don't remember what game it was, but they were using the male models, like I guess the developers were gay or something, and they wanted to see dick and balls. And I'm like, yeah, it makes no sense that they're okay with all that, but we just want to have a good looking fighter that's badass, and that's a problem for everybody. I don't know. What is your overall take with all this? Like, just outside of what you were saying there, like, it's just so crazy.
No, it is crazy, because, man, like, what people don't understand is, and I've been saying this the whole time, because every time I mention, like, when we talk about beautiful female characters and everything, this was never a discussion a long time ago when it came to gaming. We just talked about why we like the game, like, cool story, cool set pieces and moments in the game, our favorite experiences and stuff. The character itself and how they look, sexually or how they are drawn up or whatever, was never up for discussion. We never really talked about that and honed in on it. It wasn't until Anita Sarkeesian and these journalists come in, start always pointing out of, this hypersexualization of women and how women looking versus how men looking, how women are treated as second-class citizens, and how males are, put on this pedestal and stuff. We never talked about those things as gamers. So the more and more they keep putting that up in the media and putting it in these journal outlets and stuff, and then once Gamergate came in 2014, we started seeing a radical shift, a radical change, especially when the Me Too movement came in and all these other things that's times up and stuff like that started happening. It pretty much shook up Hollywood, and it shook up the gaming industry, where these people came in and just took over like the Sith. Like they just came in and just took over, and then they started reshaping the narrative. And now we saw a decade of our favorite IPs just getting ruined, especially our female characters. The males stayed the same mostly. The only things that get affected by the males, where what they do is, if the male was the highlight, they put him in the background and put the female character in the front, and then they pretty much emasculate him. They make him incompetent, they make him an idiot, or they'll take that female character, make her to a boss bitch, and make her talk down to that male character, and to make him look like an idiot and stuff like that. And if you want to make a strong female character, I have no problem with that. But you don't have to emasculate men in order to make a female character appear strong. Gaming was never about that. So that's what really irritated me. And then I started noticing that, hey, you covering the women up. These women starting to look ugly as shit. What is going on here? And then you start looking at articles where they will make all these hit pieces, calling males incels, perverts, all these other things. But then you turn around, these same journalists would start talking about male characters, saying, hey, we want to see their dick, we want to see their balls, and all this other type of stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, so it's okay to sexualize male characters. It's completely fine. But if we talk about, hey, we just like a beautiful looking, attractive woman while kicking ass, we're the bad guys. We're the perverts. How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense at all. And then you start
going back. Contradicts everything they're trying to tell people. It's like,
then you start going back. You start looking at who these people are. And when you start and one of my videos where I talk about Sweet Baby Inc., when we start having this thing called the ESG, which is these investments, it stands for environmental, social, and governance. And what happens is you have these investors who's looking for companies who are trying to make the world a better place. But we already know what that means and stuff. It's all about a narrative driven, how they want these people to behave a certain way. And I talk about this big company called BlackRock. BlackRock is like almost like Shimra in Final Fantasy. These dudes own everything. They control everything. And then the CEO himself said, our job is to force behaviors. We want you to think a certain way. We want you to feel a certain way. We want to enforce these things and stuff. So what happens is a lot of these companies pretty much started saying, okay, if we want to get this money, this financing or these investments, we would have to, pretty much fall heel to these companies and fall heel to the narrative. So that's why you start seeing a lot more LGBTQ in these games. You start to see more people of color. And the problem is people of color being in games is not the problem. The problem is they use these characters to pretty much spout out, political agendas and social agendas and stuff like that, instead of just making them great characters. And that's the problem. Yep. And then also what's going on is they have this whole narrative that we're trying to get rid of and eliminate the white straight male and stuff. So when it comes to the hiring process, these companies say, hey, we want the investment. So to show, because what happens with the ESG is pretty much a business social credit. Like in China, you have the social scores in China. Now with the ESG, it's the same thing done with businesses. If you're the more diverse you are, the more investments and the more appealing that you look to these investors and to the rest of the community. So now when it comes to the hiring process, it's no longer about who's the right one for the job. We just want to look good on paper that we're diverse. So the gaming industry happens to be predominantly Asian and white males, more specifically white males. So what happens is now when you have this whole diversity thing, now you're going to start picking people out just for the sake of diversity, which means you're going to start curving a lot of the white straight males. Now, the problem, every time I mention this, I always get a lot of backlash for being, especially me as a black man, because people thinking that, why are you kissing the white man's ass and, and all this other type of stuff. I was like, no, I'm against discrimination, no matter if it's done to black people or white people. I'm against it in general. I don't like it. So it appears to me that a lot of these people who claim to be against racism and discrimination, no, they're totally for it, as long as it's not happening to them. So you guys want racism. You guys are proponents and advocates for this stuff, as long as it's not done to you. So it's not me kissing white people's ass or anything. I'm a fair and balanced and consistent person. If I don't want it to be done to me, it shouldn't be done to white people as well. That's how I see things. And yes, people of color can be racist too. You know, so that's the whole thing that I always put out there to my audience. I'm all for balance and I'm all for fairness. A lot of these advocates claim they're for fairness, but when you look at people at Sweet Baby Inc. and a lot of the racist rhetoric that their employees have, it totally contradicts that. And then at the same time, you know, the same people that you say you advocating for, you really don't like these people either. You really don't. You just use these people as a shield to further your own agenda and to line up your own pockets. And that's the state that we're in, you know, in the gaming industry. And it's not making it fun for anybody at all, bro.
Yeah, I made a lot of those points on my video today because I was talking about just how scary it is that a lot of these people in these webzines and like, you know, SBI and other
Mm-hmm.
companies like them, they're very quick to, you know, label everyone else like sexist and racist, but then when they start like for instance, Danny Lalonde, you know, she pipes in because she used to work at the SBI, but then you start digging at her background, you see her kind of mess,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just sad. It comes down to this: like you're a big time gamer, I'm a casual gamer, but we can see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're using identity politics to take out the fun of what games are supposed to be. The games are supposed to be an escapism to enjoy, get away from the real world, and just have fun, like movies are.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're seeing across the board now is that there, you know, it used to be you would like you said the same thing, like diversity inclusion is fine, but build a good story around it, then you can use it. But if you're just using the identity politics and then have a weak story, no one's going to like it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's happening with a lot of games. So Suicide Squad or, you know, Unknown Nine, that they're failing because of these particular things. And that's all
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to point out. Like they seem to think that we just hate them for the sake of hating. We don't. We just
Mm-hmm.
want good games.
Yeah,
You know?
it's not hard at all. And what makes it so funny about Stellar Blade cracks holes in all of this. It really does.
That
Now,
game
like
looks amazing.
yeah, and this is what I said in my video, because a lot of people keep there's also an argument is you said all we see is everybody keep talking about how great the female character look, but no one is talking about the game. Yes, we are talking about the game as well as far as the gameplay. I said in my video, I said this too. I said the reason why we having this argument about Eve, the main character, is because this thing has been suppressed for 10 years. We're getting 10 years of the bastardization of female characters. So when you finally get a character that like Eve that pops up and there's no censorship going on, people are going to make a big deal about this. And what makes sense of all this is if we went back to pre Gamergate, a character like Eve was very common. She was very common. And the thing is, Stellar Blade, and to be honest, Stellar Blade wouldn't be as big or talked about if gaming wasn't the way it is today, because she would have
Mhm.
been considered any other, you know, action game, you know, like that would probably get lost in translation. That would get lost in the wind. She would be like any other game. But the reason why it's getting so big is because this discussion has been suppressed for so long, and now that she's out there, people are going to talk about it. People's going to point that thing out, and of course, we still want it to be a good game. I mean, it has to be a good game. So not only that, you know, we have a character like Eve herself, and if the game ends up being in a phenomenal game and a fun game to play, this would shatter every narrative at this point. And these game studios at this point should wake up and say, you know what, maybe we should stop doing all this ESG nonsense and this DEI nonsense and just go back to what it used to be, especially if Stellar Blade ends up being a great game, a great package altogether, you know?
Well, you know, us picky babies, we can't be catered to for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever reason, we make money for you, but you don't like money. I don't know. What you
Yeah.
tell me? So, what do you feel like is the future for gaming in terms of like not just, you know, the stuff that we just talked about, but like gaming systems and whatnot? What have you heard in the grapevine of
Oh,
all
that's
that?
a good. I like, man, you got some good questions, man. All right, this is, yeah, definitely. It was something that I talk about regularly on my channel. We talked about we going into this all digital era. Everything is going digital, bro.
Yeah.
Everything, even down to the consoles, where, you know, if you notice a lot of these mid-generation versions of our consoles, if you don't know what a mid-generation is, perfect example, if we go back to the PS4 era and the Xbox One era, we first got introduced to a mid-generation where we had the PS4 Pro. These were like a mid-generation beefier version of the base console, but much more powerful, more horsepower. And it's pretty much to get us prepared for when we jump into the next generation, which is the PS5. They did the same thing with the Xbox One. We got the Xbox One X, which was a stupid name. But yeah, we had got that. So that started becoming, I guess you say, starting to become tradition now. The only ones that haven't really stepped in to do it is Nintendo. Nintendo haven't done a mid-generation at all. But Sony and Microsoft has set the standard for this. So now we're starting to get rumblings and rumors of a mid-generation console of the PS5 Pro. And the biggest rumors about the PS5 Pro is that it's definitely going to have the option for you to remove the disc drive from it and just have it as a all digital platform altogether. And also there's supposed to be an all digital Xbox Series X mid-generation that's going to come out, but that's not going to have a disc drive at all. So the future of gaming and the way we talked about it and the way we see things is that they're trying to go make gaming into like this subscription service. And Microsoft is trying to really push that with the Game Pass. And the thing is, what hurt the Xbox brand a long time ago was the last generation with the Xbox One, when they added the DRM feature on the Xbox, where your Xbox, in order for you to play your games, you have to be on the internet 24/7 or whatever. If you're not on the internet 24/7, then you can't have access to your games. And gamers wasn't going for that. They went straight after Microsoft, said, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you guys did good with the Xbox 360. Now all of a sudden you're trying to say that we're supposed to have our internet. What if we don't have internet? Then our console's pretty much a brick and we can't do nothing with it. So the fans who are Xbox fans, they just jumped ship and went to PlayStation 4. And that's what gave Sony the biggest leap ever. Now, this is the thing. Sony was planning the same thing with the DRM, but Microsoft did the announcement first. And Sony said, yo, they called them executives, like, whoa, hold up, pause this, stop.
It said, no, we're not doing what they did.
No, we're not doing that. So Sony turned around and did an attack campaign. This is the thing that sold everybody with Sony. They did a nice little short commercial. It said, this is how, this, because the thing was, gamers with the Xbox One, with the DRM, you weren't even allowed to even trade games with your friend. Like, if I wanted you to hold the game, I would have to give up my digital license and rights to you to play it, which means I won't be able to play it no more. That was the whole thing. So Sony came out with a commercial, said, hey, you want to be able to trade games with your friends? You see the Sony president at the time from Japan and the Sony president from America, and he had a PlayStation 4 box, and he's like, here, he just gave it to him, and he just took it. Oh, thank you, man. And then that was the commercial. When fans seen that, everybody jumped off the Xbox and went straight to the PlayStation 4. And Microsoft and Xbox was doomed, and the brand itself was doomed ever since that. And then the CEO, Don Matrick, he got fired because what happened was IGN and all these journalists had interviewed Don Matrick, and when they asked Don Matrick, what about, what if you don't have the internet? What if you're going on vacation or whatever like that, and you want to bring your console and stuff? And his dumbass said, well, there's always the Xbox 360. He told them that. Just keep displaying your Xbox 360. And that's what got him fired.
Oh my God. I can see why.
Yeah, that's what got him fired. And that's how Phil Spencer came in. They end up getting Phil Spencer, and Phil Spencer had to turn the Xbox around and the brand around. And that's when we got to the Xbox Series X and S. They introduced the Game Pass. And the Game Pass, in my personal opinion, that I think this is where the future is going. So Microsoft was thinking 20 steps ahead. Even with the Xbox One with the DRM, they saw an all-digital future. They tried to capitalize on it early, but the gamers say, no, we ain't going for this shit. But now we're in this generation, everything is going digital. And Game Pass is the thing that they're trying to do. They're trying to be the Netflix of video games, where you just have the subscription service and you have all the access to all the video games that you want. But the problem is you don't own the games. And
that's what I was going to get to, because I
digital.
saw Asmund talking about it a little bit, where they're taking away the ownership part of it.
Exactly.
So some people are like, I don't know if I want that or not. But, it is kind of the way it's going right now.
Yeah, bro. And that's where they're going. And the problem is with this is that what happens is when you go all digital, I covered this months ago, where Remember, Warner Brothers and Discovery did a merger. They became Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, what happened was a couple months ago, everybody on PlayStation, all the PlayStation owners on PlayStation Network, had bought a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, underneath the Warner Brothers umbrella. So when the merger happened, that agreement that Sony had to have these movies and television shows on their platforms dissolved instantly. So every person who purchased all those digital movies and TV shows and stuff, they lost everything.
Yeah.
And the Sony's like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And they didn't refund everybody, so everybody lost everything. That means you put hundreds and maybe thousands of dollars in television shows, cartoons, seasons of shows, and everything in movies. It's all going. You spent all that money and you have nothing to show for it. And that's the dangers of this all digital. And this is the future of gaming that I believe that they're trying to push it towards it. And also Best Buy has pretty much got rid of their physical gaming area in a lot of Best Buys, where when you go there, everything is digital. They just have a card that's like a card that you buy. And
I think I saw that at Walmart too. Like you go in there, you barely find anything in there. Yeah.
And
Crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy, and that's the future, and that's what I'm afraid of. Because then now they can control your gaming experience, and they can charge you whatever price they want to charge you, and they can retroactively censor your games. And I'll give you a perfect example: Skullgirls, which is a fighting game. That game been out for almost over a decade now, and they're still making content for it, more DLC characters and everything. But essentially, now that the company has went woke, what they decided to do was they wanted to get rid of like Nazi imagery, because the game took place during like World War II. The way the characters were drawn up, they like one of those old Steamboat Willie type of drawings and stuff. But it's a fighting game, and they have a lot of hot women in it. And it's called Skullgirls. Most of the fighters are girls or females in it and stuff like that. So what happens is you have some of the Nazi imagery in it and stuff like that, but it's for its time. That's the whole set piece of the game and stuff like that. And they have a couple other things in it. So what they did was, once they kicked the CEO from the company out of his own company because of his joke that he made during the whole George Floyd situation, because there was a fighting game tournament where Skullgirls was being played. So the CEO was there commentating on the match between the players. So what happened was, one of the guys that was competing, he was getting destroyed. He was in the corner, and the player was just beating his ass to the point that he couldn't do anything. So Mike Z, who's the owner or the CEO of the company that made Skullgirls, he was commentating, and the guy was getting destroyed so bad, and he was like, is it safe to say that he can't breathe? And you remember the whole George Floyd situation with George Floyd said he couldn't breathe. Now, for me, I didn't take no offense to it, because when I play fighting games and I'm beating somebody's ass, I say, yo, this motherfucker can't breathe. Oh, I say shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he said it, and every minority and white people with white guilt, started attacking him. Started attacking him, and that caused him to get fired from removed from his own company. So then, of course, it got taken over by his right hand friend. This Asian chick took it over, and then the whole company just went woke after that. So what happened was, the game had got an update called Skullgirls Encore, where it added new characters and everything, and they had a digital edition that had all this artwork and all this other type of stuff. So people bought the digital edition. When they bought it, people loved it. So after the company went woke, they decided to censor the game. So they went back into the game and censored all the panty shots that the female characters had. They censored other things. Then they got rid of the other, like the Nazi stuff they had, and they had a couple other things that they got rid of that they felt as though that was insensitive to certain groups of people and stuff. And then what they did was they went into the digital collector's edition and even censored the artwork that people already purchased already. So people went into their digital collector's edition and found that everything was removed. That's crazy. I paid money for this, and you went in and changed something that I already paid for. that should be
Right.
a grounds to sue or something.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You paid for
So
the product.
exactly. So can you imagine if we go into all digital where you can just wake up one day and the game that you had before is no longer the same game because they didn't want to offend anybody, or the company went woke all of a sudden and decided, they say, hey, this is bad for you guys. You shouldn't be partaking in this. So we're going to change it after they took your money. That's just
Yeah, one
wrong.
thing I heard that was really bad was some guy, like, he was doing something like that where he was paying for it, and I guess it was for World of Warcraft or something, but
Hmm.
he had a subscription, of course, and then like I guess they have it just digital now. So, but what happened was he tried to, like, they had like a user agreement. This is what Asma was talking about. So they had this user
Hmm.
agreement that they started with. If you don't accept it, it logs you out of your account.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happens is he's paying for it, but he can't get back in his account. So he had to go in somehow and change it over to like a dummy credit card that would only have like a certain limit,
Yeah.
so that they wouldn't keep charging him. So even if that other card maxed out, they wouldn't be able to keep charging while he can't
Right.
get into the game. So that was like a glitch that they haven't fixed yet. So that's the scary thing, is like,
It glitched my
God
ass.
forbid you don't accept that user agreement about, like, them owning the game,
Yeah.
and then you get locked out of your account, but they're still charging you money for it. So that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's why I don't like this whole all digital thing, because of stuff like that. Because can you imagine, like I said, can you imagine even being a YouTuber or a public figure who has an opinion that they disagree with? They can lock you out of your own game if they want to. They say, "Hey, you no longer have access to our game, even though we took your money and you purchased it. We don't like what you're saying on YouTube. We don't like what you're saying on Twitter or whatever platform that you on. We don't like it. So now we don't want you to have access to our game, even though we took your money." And that's a scary future to be in.
Yep. Well, tell people what you got coming up. What do you got in the plans, in the works?
Okay. Well, I just started a podcast of my own. I started it this week. And it did really, really well. Like, I'm really trying to branch out there, and then eventually I'm gonna start inviting other people onto my platform as well, so we can, do some collaborations and everything. And I'll definitely like to invite you on at some time once I start getting this thing going and stuff. But as far as that's concerned, I have a couple projects that I do have coming up. The one video I do have coming up is that Microsoft had put a warning or guidelines out to developers, telling them that, sexualized females is like, they suggest that you don't do it. And if you're going to like publish games or design games underneath their publication, that they're suggesting them that sexy female characters shouldn't happen. You shouldn't do that because it's offensive and stuff like that. So I do have that video coming up. Also, I have bought the Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch. This game right here, I had bought it I bought my daughter a copy, and I bought myself a copy to celebrate our birthday this week, because her birthday was yesterday and
Hey,
mine
all
is
right.
tomorrow. So yeah, I will be doing a breakdown video, because I'm about to boot it up later on tonight and start playing it, and then I'm gonna do a breakdown video, like a review, or give you my impressions on that as well. And also, what else I have coming up? I'm getting prepared for my comic book universe. So I have some details that I'll be working on to start letting people know, because I have a teaser trailer that I will put out there. It's going to be a teaser to let people know the date of the campaign and when it's going to launch for pre-orders for my book and everything like that. But yeah, that's pretty much essentially it. Also, yeah, I also have a arcade stick with my comic book characters on the
Oh, that's
artwork,
cool.
as,
Shit. Oh my
as well
God.
as drawing comics and my comic book characters and stuff. So yeah, so I do have a ton of projects coming up, man. But yeah, just come check me out, and I do stream. I'm starting to build a streaming schedule. So my goal is to try to stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, probably around like 6 p.m. and stuff. So because that's most of the time people get off work and everything, to
Yeah.
be able to catch my stream and everything. But come just chill and just hang out and stuff. So
Are
yeah,
you
that's
on Twitch, or is it just like YouTube and stuff?
I multi-stream. I stream on Twitch, YouTube, and now Kick. So I stream on
Okay.
all three platforms at once. So no
You're
matter what
multiversing.
yeah, pretty much. So whatever platform you on, you will be able to catch me regardless. So it doesn't matter. So you don't have to come over and rush over to YouTube. You can stay if you on Twitch. You can stay on Twitch and still catch the same stream. I'm multi-streaming, so you better catch me either way. Yep.
All right, cool. For those that are viewing, be sure to subscribe to this man's channel, man. He has a lot of great knowledge, and it's been a joy to talk to you, man. It's great to talk to you about this stuff. So,
Oh, no problem, man.
I'll
Anytime.
be putting his information in the description panel. I'm also going to try to get some more information about your comics so people know where to go to check that out and stuff like that. So, for the rest of you, I think for me and Neko, tomorrow we're going to go check out Godzilla X Kong, see how that is, and then we've already give our review of that. And then I don't know, not sure what I'm gonna do Friday yet, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Hang on, Mugen, and then for the rest of you, please subscribe and like if you like this content. I appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next time here on the Middle Town Radio podcast.
Just before you die.